And we are live. Let's see if we have, I can't really see if we have anybody out here yet. If you guys are watching us live, please put a comment or something in the chat so I can see. All right. Well, once again, folks, we are here with PMIC on the air. I am Florence Renee, VP of Publicity and Sponsorship, and we're here today as part of our social TV program, which is basically us, a small but mighty chapter, throwing our hat in the ring when it comes to social media and basically all the conversations that's going on around project management and so many other topics. We are a 600 strong member chapter. We're based in Central Illinois, but we have a global reach. I would like to think that we do, especially with this environment that we're in. All of our events are basically virtual. And so it just makes sense to actually come on here and add more content and add our voices to social media. And on that note, I do want to give a quick shout out to our last VP of Publicity, because without him, this program wouldn't have existed. So I'm actually taking over from him, trying to do the program justice. And I hope that he will catch this live and maybe comment even. But we're here today. It's our second quarter PMI-CIC On The Air. I'm here with Vidya Raman, and I will introduce her. But before I get into Vidya's background and the conversation for tonight, I just want to read a quick disclaimer that the views on this live stream are my own. They're Vidya's. They don't represent PMI. They don't even necessarily represent PMI Central Illinois, and they certainly don't represent my employer. And so what we're going to talk about is basically our own views, thoughts and feelings based on our own lived experiences in our education and experience. So with that out of the way, I do want to say hi, Christine. I do see Christine from Denver. Wonderful. Thank you for making it, Christine. Love it. So I promised to kind of introduce you, Vidya. Let me just explain how we connected.
Yes.
Because it's kind of a funny story. So I am huge into like podcasting. I listen to all kinds of podcasts. And now that I'm part of the PMI world, I listen to different chapters. I try to look at different chapters and see what are they doing. Metrolina, apparently, I did not know this. They have this podcast. It's very, very good. And that's how I came across Vidya. And she was on there talking about her experience. And the whole time, maybe it was like a 30-minute long podcast. Mm-hmm. The whole time, I was like, wow. I felt like she was talking to me as someone who fell into corporate world, trying to navigate that and not having quite all the tools and everything. I just felt like you were speaking to me. And I said, you know what? I need to reach out to her. I think I went on LinkedIn. I DM'd you. I slid in your DM. And I told you who I was and that I would love to have you come speak with our chapter. And that's basically how we started. I would say around November, December last year. And it's been a wonderful time getting to know you, getting to follow you on social media, basically. And so I just thought you would be a great person to do our second quarter live stream with. And for more than one reason, but one of the reasons is that you have a new book out, and it's one of the it was one of the topics that you were talking about on that podcast with Metrolina. So that's a quick background and how the two of us got connected. So Vidya, do you want to tell us who you are? Where are you based presently, or maybe where are you from originally? Anything that you don't mind sharing please go ahead and take the floor. And this will be a conversation, not like a straight Q&A. So we're just going to talk from the heart, from the mind, and just have a good time.
Thank you. And I tell you, when you were doing your introduction about how we met, there was something about you, Florence. I felt a kinship with you, immediately. And I even told you that. You were thinking, like, who is this woman, like, telling me that? Because I can pick up vibes, and I immediately felt a connection with you. So, I know we started last fall chatting, and I'm telling you, I'm honored to be on your show here on the podcast for your chapter. So to answer your question, right, so my journey, of course, began in India. If my accent didn't give me away already, I call it
I
the
have
elephant.
one too.
It's the elephant in the room, is what I call it. So you know that
Yes.
it's a different accent. So people know you're not from here, right? I said,
Sure.
So I moved. So I was raised in India. So in a home that truly valued work ethic and education. So I grew up indoctrinated into that. So I feel very blessed, a lot of love. With that, I moved to this country right after I got married 34 years ago. And it was an amazing assimilation journey into America. And assimilation is like when you're trying hard to blend in, but at the same time you're trying to balance to hold on to something sacred, like your roots, your traditions. So it's this perfect marriage between assimilation and holding on to what is near and dear to my heart. So everything came together. Everybody was so welcoming. So it's been an amazing journey. And I did not waste any time because I'm such an aspiring professional at that time. I jumped into corporate life immediately. Like, I did not even take a few months off, Florence. After my wedding, I found my first job. I was in my job, functioning. At that time, I had a computer applications master's degree. So I went straight into programming in a large Fortune 500 company. So that's where my journey started. And from there, I don't want to hog all the
Yeah.
airtime here.
Yes.
So anyway, so that's where I started. And then it's been a long journey since then.
Right, I'm sure. So where are you based currently? Because you're definitely not from Central Illinois.
I'm
But
in
we would love to have you.
I will visit your chapter one day for sure. Um, I am in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's beautiful out here. I lived in Texas for 17 years, and I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina now. So enjoying every moment of it.
Now, as a undergrad, I actually went on a election canvassing in North Carolina. That was my first and only time there in North Carolina. I loved it. We spent 1 week, college students. We all got on the bus and we're gonna go work for this senator and do canvassing. And I love the food. I love the food, the cornbread and everything. So whenever I meet people from North Carolina, I think back to my days as a student working the election for this one senator. Now, are you part of your local PMI chapter? Because this being North Carolina, there's definitely more than one PMI chapter there. Which one do you
Right,
belong to?
right. I'm closely affiliated with Metrolina, like you said, the Charlotte chapter, but it's a greater Charlotte area. It's a wonderful chapter, and I'm always grateful for the opportunities they gave me to
Mhm.
speak. So yes, member of, and prior to Metrolina, I was a member of the PMI Houston chapter.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes sense. So, did you hold any leadership position, or you just kind of like were just a member? I know you've done speaking engagement for different chapters, but did you ever do any kind of leadership volunteering?
Not any PMI leadership role. I was always a member, so it's my bad. I had such a hectic work life.
Yeah.
So I would just attend, and like most, PMP people, I was like going there to collect my PDUs,
Yes. Yeah.
So I did not ever get that opportunity. And now maybe when I look back, because I had these two competing hobbies. One was Toastmasters and one was PMI. So I
Oh, okay.
so I had to spend my time both ways. But in Toastmasters, I did a lot of leadership in
Mhm.
terms of volunteering into big roles and area director. But with PMI, I was a member, taking in everything.
And to To be honest with you, I think Toastmasters and PMI, they go hand in hand very well. Because
They
as
do.
project managers and people who do project work, we have to communicate. We have to be able to tell stories, be able to speak at the top of top of our mind, speak off the cuffs.
Yes,
So
off the cuff.
Toastmasters, I think goes hand in hand with PMI. Um, Now, what made you go into Toastmasters? Did you feel like you needed to work on your presentation? Because I feel like when you are like, you were born to be like a speaker. So what kind of, I guess, what made you go into Toastmasters? Just to
Such a
kind
good,
of segue.
right. No, it's a good question. I tell you, when you read my book, you know, the early part of my career was kind of the very early part was fine, and then somewhere a little later things started going south for me because, like I said, work ethic, hard work was a part of my makeup, right? So I just thought if I worked hard and I produced results, that would be it. But when I was not getting that career promotion or the advancement that I had hoped for,
Hmm.
when the frustration set in, you know, you feel that need to do something,
Hmm.
anything to get out of this situation. And my way of finding some avenue where I could take control was joining Toastmasters. Now,
Hmm.
it was it's not that so much so I walked into a Toastmasters meeting on my own. A friend took me there. Now
Gotcha.
she was a close friend. She knew I was frustrated and she said, just join me. And I went with her. And let me tell you, the first meeting, I was so intimidated. They were amazing speakers out there. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh my God, I'm so out of their league, you know. But my friend said, no, we just stay on. And I tell you, that was the best decision I ever made because I grew and I was one thing about me, and you may have figured this out, Florence, by reading my book. I pay attention.
Mhm.
I'm very good with my observation. If there's one skill set I do have, I observe. So I was watching and learning from better speakers and kind of a little bit cloning till I found my own, you know, then I
Mhm.
made it my own. But I was figuring out what worked, what did not work. And I haven't quit Toastmasters since 2011. So I've
Mhm.
stuck with them because it's really been, I consider it in a way the one that transformed me, maybe bolder, more courageous, confident to try new things, you know.
Right.
Um,
So how did you take the fact that you know you had that gap, right? And then you were doing projects, and how did you were you ever did you get to work as a project manager? Did you get to lead projects, teams? So how was that experience?
Right. I've been a project manager for a very long time. So I've led mostly IT teams, and then I've led business teams later in my career. But it was teams that were both uh, in location where I was, and also in India. So
Mhm.
I had a IT team away. So it was all about managing responsibilities across the board. It was also, and I mean, like you probably, project managers, we know what dates and what dependencies are and all the triggers, and we are very, very organized.
Mhm.
So I was running it in a very mechanical way. I made sure that we never slipped up, we always delivered. But then later, I realized I need to soften my approach and not be so go, 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 get
Mhm.
things done. So I realized it's more about communication, connection, building relationships with people.
Mhm.
When you do that, you don't have to have those series of accountability meetings. You really can get things done. People will actually turn stuff in when they're supposed to turn stuff in because they trust you, they believe in you, they like you. So
Mhm.
all this stuff comes from focused relationship building, being helpful when you can be helpful. So people feel like you helped them at some point and they're willing to help you back. So this whole relationship thing, I transformed my project management style because I tell you, for me, if you set a goal, just like if I had a target to finish a book, I will finish that book.
Mhm.
I am super duper deadline focused, highly, highly productive because I don't let distractions disturb me, take me away. It's my laser focus on priorities, in a way, kept my projects on track. And so, did I answer your question? Yes.
Yeah, it did. As you were talking, I am like that too. I haven't really worked as a PM, but I am certified and I've been on many projects, big and small. When you were talking, I was thinking, did you find that the fact that you were deadline driven, you were task oriented, did that make you, was that alienating in some way? Did you feel like you were not part of the cool kids, if you will? You know what I mean? Because sometimes I know I've had that experience too. I was just curious if you've had that.
Right. No, it's not so much I didn't feel, I mean, things were good, but they were not great, right?
Mhm.
Um, so getting things done on time, delivering is always good for the bosses. They love it. They love it that you hit the targets you have met. And sometimes when you do these task driven things so well, people think it's easy.
Mhm.
And when you're always checking off boxes, getting stuff done, delivering stuff, people think like you haven't really worked that hard. But really, can you imagine having multiple moving pieces and keeping it all together was hard. But I was more successful when I softened my approach. Um, when I learned the world, other people's worlds, right? What they were going through, what were their priorities, what were
Mhm.
their challenges, and then I knew how to even ask for help,
Mhm.
what I wanted them to give, and I would even say, if you are stressed about a priority, how can I help you? That kind of help projects people to congeal better together and deliver. But uh, results were always there, whether you go through task and focus and get it done no matter what, or the softer touch, which is better for the long term relationship and also better for career advancement.
Mhm.
So, even if you get everything done right and you deliver everything, and you can say projects delivered on time under budget, sounds great. But if you do that with a softer touch, you actually get ahead. If you don't, there may be some people who are not speaking very highly of you,
Mhm.
of your accomplishment. So it's this, you have to be results focused, but you got to also balance it out. It's not all soft talk, then nothing gets done, right? So you need to
Right.
know the right balance of pressure and also explaining to people why you're pushing, right? Why is
Right.
this date important? Because sometimes people don't tell you that. And even sometimes people are left, why is this so important? Why is this a dependency? Explain to them.
Mhm.
Sometimes people like being respected. Just when you explain things to them, they feel respected. So, yeah,
Yeah.
so I found the perfect balance is be a little hard nosed to get your results, but also understand and be empathetic to other people's priorities. So
Right. I did struggle with that starting out. I'm getting better. I'm a work in progress.
we all are.
I'm getting better at doing the water cooler conversations, the surface level conversations, and still feeling like I'm keeping my eyes on the ball. Like I'm still going after the objectives. I'm still working towards what I need to be working on, but I'm doing better. I'm doing better.
No,
It takes a lot of practice.
it does. And we are all a work in progress. Listen, I stumble every day on little things, and I'm like, God, I advise other people, and look at me. It takes time, it's like, and I tell you, sometimes, Florence, making a few mistakes here and there is the best thing that you can ever do because you learn from it, right?
Mhm.
Um, that whole evaluated experience thing, it's one thing to just experience it and not care about what you experienced. The
Mhm.
another thing is to sit there and say, why did this happen?
Right.
Evaluate it. That way you truly will start fixing, and that's when you get incrementally better. And that's what we all should strive for, as opposed to not paying attention to a little lessons learned along the way.
Right. Now, you talked about you paying attention, being observant, looking into the lessons learned so we can grow and do better. Did you make a point to have a mentor when you were coming up? And do you remember that experience? Was it easy for you to find somebody to mentor you? Or for me, it was not easy.
Right. Let me tell you, if you were to ask me in my corporate life, one of my biggest regrets is I never reached out to anybody to be my mentor. And
Mm,
now when I coach people, I tell them go find a mentor. And that time nobody advised me and I didn't know. So I was very flippant about it. And I would say things like Oprah Winfrey was my mentor because I would watch her
yep.
and watch her carefully. And I tell you, from the early 90s, I used to watch her evolution and how she blossomed. I followed her all the way from her show through her Super Soul Sunday and spirituality. I did everything. Um,
Yes.
and I grew with her, but I was like a sponge. So I never had, and then of course I would listen to NPR on my long commutes in Houston to learn from other people, people who spoke well, people who understood big ideas. So I was like a sponge. So I didn't have a designated mentor, but I picked up on real gurus, right? And then I also read a lot of self-help books. I call myself a personal development junkie. I was always reading and improving myself, always. And listening to CDs on people are wondering what is a CD, but I used to listen to CDs on my drive and grow.
Yeah.
Now, when I became a leader, I mentored so many people. And I tell everybody go find a mentor, because something that you cannot see as somebody, at your, say, position or your lack of experience, a mentor will tell you
Yeah.
what what is the lay of the land, what do other business areas do. They also talk about the industry, then they'll talk about just generally the, who are the influential people, what are the structures in this company, how decisions are made. These are
Hmm.
the things you need to know
Yep.
for you to play your cards right. To even when you build your brand and you're showing off your brand, you're thinking, do I know if this is the right person, right? To become a little bit more strategic, you do need to know the lay of the land. And I
Hmm.
tell you, a good mentor will help you. And I know people hesitate, and maybe that's why I hesitate and never ask somebody. I didn't know better then. But I
Hmm.
tell you, most leaders in companies love to mentor. They just need to be asked. And you know what? If you ask respectfully and say, I do recognize you're a busy person. If you do have a sometime, I would love to you to be my mentor. And more often than not, a leader would come back and say yes. Now, if they're genuinely busy, they may say, you know what, I may suggest somebody else because I don't have time. I don't have bandwidth at this point. But I tell you, people, I encourage people, don't make the mistake I made.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go find a mentor. Or, I mean, I'm okay where I landed. I kept focusing on growth, have a growth mindset. Do not ever think you have the answer and protect yourself. It's okay to make mistakes,
Hmm.
because when you're afraid to be caught as a person who unintelligent or whatever, that's the mistake people make, because they'll stay fixed. That's a fixed mindset.
Hmm.
It's okay to take a risk, fail a little bit, but you're growing. We all want to get to the other side, right?
Yes.
And so take chances, stumble a little bit, learn from your stumbles, but don't protect yourself and say, I'm playing it safe, because that'll be the worst mantra playing in your head. It's okay to stumble, it's okay to fail. That'll be my message to anybody trying to grow their career. You only learn from your mistakes, and you learn deep lessons from your mistakes. You won't make it again.
On the topic of mentor, what I came to accept is that I need more than one. I used to go for long stretches without one. And then on the flip side, I would go on long stretches with just one. Um, I've never been able to find, like, get my pick, right? Or have multiple sponsors all at one time. But I've come to accept that it is something that I need to work on and have multiple. Another thing I learned is that a mentor is not enough. Like, you need an advocate, you
Yes.
need a sponsor,
Yes.
right? Like the people who can actually say Florence is such and such, is good at such and such. If you're looking for, someone like that, like her profile, she's your gal. I didn't know this coming out,
I can
that
imagine.
I needed to have multiple mentors, I needed to have advocates, I needed to have sponsors. It's a lot. Now, with you writing Lucky You, this is Vidya's book. I have my copy. You talked about doing that, like having a game plan, and you know, not just going through the motion of corporate life and owning your career. That's really, there are so many messages in here, but that's the I would say the top one, like owning your career, right?
So true. Yep.
Owning
Owning.
it, and then having a brand. Do you have a brand? I think I know the answer, but did you always have this brand, and how did
No,
you develop your brand?
right. No, actually, so let's start with owning your career. And the reason I say that is not everybody's fortunate enough to have a sponsor.
Yeah.
And sometimes you will notice, for whatever reason, people are not investing in you, right? There could be 101 reasons. So you cannot rely on somebody else to be your advocate, to invest in you. Now, you can always bring those people to you if you are really operating at the top level, which is when you follow the book and you follow the process where you really are coming across as a leader. Because you know one thing, you can be an amazingly hardworking person and delivering stuff, but if you don't show up in that there's a certain persona of a leader and you develop it with awareness, right? So anyway, so from a brand, I didn't have any of that. So I learned from the school of hard knocks. So that's why I learned it better. I always think I learned it better because I stumbled so much. So from a brand perspective, agreed. Everybody needs to figure out what their strengths are and figure out what could become my calling card. Like, and remember, what is a brand really, right? Most products, what problem do you solve? That's the question you ask. So my brand, based on what job I had, kind of changed, right? From technology, I went into business. And then somewhere in my business career, I started discovering things. I was paying attention and listening when people would say things to me like, I was so down when I came to talk to you, but I feel so uplifted when I left, right? I've heard this conversation, even when I was in IT, by the way. This kind of comment would come from different people, but I would be happy I helped somebody. But then, but then I noticed there was a team forming. People were validating me for helping them. And somewhere there, I said, you know what? Maybe my brand is being a coach. Being that coach thing just took root, but I was listening. And this is why I tell everybody, pay attention to what people are telling you, off the cuff remarks, because if you start seeing a pattern, there's something about your personality that they're telling you about, because we don't see our strengths, somebody's calling it out for us. Because when you do something naturally, do you even know it's a strength? You don't. So wait for other people to make some casual comment about you, and if you hear it 3 times, 4 times, you're onto something there. So
Right.
that's the kind of brand attention. So you are doing something, you're solving somebody's problem, you're solving a company's problem. Or you may realize that, oh my God, I'm a whiz kid when it comes to macros, right? I'm going to write macro after macro, streamline processes. Suddenly that becomes your brand. You're the go-to person, and your utility is appreciated by everybody in the company. So think about your brand, and also know, don't get fixated on one, especially in the corporate world. I'm talking about, this is not you being an entrepreneur and you're picking your brand colors.
Right.
This is you flexing, understanding the need. But while you're building the brand, one thing to pay attention to, with so much change happening in the world, be adaptable. I tell you one thing, a brand will never be appreciated if you don't adapt well. And when I say adapt well, if you start whining and complaining about a reorg in a group setting, it would be terribly detrimental to you. You got to showcase. That's the point when there's a crisis happening. That's the point to figure out, I'm going to solve a problem, and that becomes my brand. Um, so that's the time to say, you know what? I realize this has happened. There's a transformation project. How can I help? Or find, not even go asking somebody, how can I help? Figure out an area that has a gap, and you say, I want to fix this. So this is your observation power, paying attention to where you can find your little niche, right? And people might say, I have a job description. So what do you mean I can find a niche? You will. It's just, we're not looking deep enough. We're so married to a job description, we think that's where we are. Even with that job description, you can stand out from the crowd if you just pay attention. During a moment of crisis, when everybody else is whining and complaining, you pick up something to do to help the cause, and immediately you'll catch the attention of a person in leadership,
Make
so
yourself useful.
make
Find,
yourself,
yep.
yes.
Find
And
your niche.
right, it's all about change, right? Change is happening all the time. If you complain, I mean, whoever works in a company and thinks nothing is going to change, it changes all the time. So be adaptable, and then show. And I'll tell you, from a brand perspective, the other thing to lift yourself up, like your unique selling proposition, I'll say, be the change you want to see. You know how often we complain about something not being, people don't listen. I'm like,
Yeah.
why don't you become the active listener?
Yeah.
So you validate a coworker. I put this in the book because this is a small thing I've noticed. And so when everybody else is just quickly, some person slightly lower in the career tier says something, people don't even pay attention. But if you're listening, you're going to ask great follow up questions. And what you do by asking those questions politely, you're validating that person and you become the leader in the room. You know, people don't realize these small things. When you are generous to other people, you start looking like a leader. When you compliment a coworker about something they did in a group setting,
Mm-hmm.
you look like the leader. It may look like you're praising somebody else, but in the end, people look at you and say, hey, you know what? You're not that insecure person. You're a generous person.
Yep.
So all these little things, people don't pay attention. Like, oh, I don't want to praise somebody because they're going to start looking good in front of my boss, right? Not a good. Oh, actually, there's so many things you can do to let yourself stand out. So anyway,
Right.
let's stop talking.
No, no, this is good. This is good stuff. Because a compliment goes a long way.
Yes,
It
yes.
can really go a long way. So I like that, and I think that should resonate to anyone who's watching or will be watching this conversation. Now, do you feel like you had a defining moment in your career where that kind of made you decide to go off into coaching? Was that a slow progression towards coaching? You know,
Right.
did you have it as a side hustle for a little while? You know what I mean?
Yes, I know. It was a very gradual, when you talked about brand evolution, your brand shifts,
Mhm.
even your career trajectory, right, keeps shifting and changing. It's all about being adaptable. So when you start seeing that something else feels better than what your current role is,
Mm.
that's when you say, you know what, maybe a time to shift. And that's when you throw your energy into what you've already identified as a strength and you start building on it. And
Mhm.
then you think, okay, I'm getting better at this. What more can I do? Maybe I need a certification. Now
Mm.
I got certified as a coach. So this is the kind of stuff you do to test the waters, right? And then I practiced. And I tell you, the number of lives I helped just by being myself, just giving them guidance, listening to them, sharing, because very rarely in your day job do people get inspirational messages, right? You
Mhm.
just have one task to another task, and then you have maybe some toxic office politics, and it just erodes you, right? Your energy is drained. So when somebody experiences energizing conversations, inspirational conversations, their day feels better and they feel better. Imagine if you're spreading joy, how much better you're feeling about yourself. I
Mhm.
mean, I added value at the end of the day. When I look back at my day, if I brighten two people's days, I'm like, I would be thrilled, right?
Right.
So this is endowing your work with purpose. So soon I realized, I should write my journaling in the morning. My intention was always to come across, there was a time I was very assertive, and I had to tone my approach down. This is came from my project management, get it done. I had to tone it down because I realized, they say you catch more bees with honey,
Yes.
or that.
Yep.
I,
Mhm.
I decided that the softer approach, the gentle, persuasive approach is going to be a winning formula. So I would write in my journal, these are the big conversations that are going to happen today, and this is how you're going to show up. And I would execute based on my intentionality. And I tell you, if you do it every day, that becomes your natural style. You lose that old, very assertive, direct style. And let me tell you, most immigrants have come with that direct communication style. There's no sugarcoating anything. At least I think that. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I had to really learn to understand different personality types, who needed more sugarcoating, who needed less. So
Mhm.
you adjust your communication style based on that. So yes, so just just thrive, pay attention. You will, if you're paying attention and you're present and you're intentional, I tell you, the clues your environment will give you for
Mhm.
you to start charting a path in the direction of whatever your next goal is. And half the time people say, I don't know what comes, I don't know what my purpose is. Don't worry about that. Don't go chasing after this big purpose. Endow whatever you're doing with purpose, but pay attention, listen for clues, and suddenly you start seeing a little clue, a little spark, and you say, you know what, maybe I am good at this thing.
Right. So it was a combination of your inner voice, you noticing that you were liking it more than your regular day job, the job that was paying you
Right?
handsomely at that point, and to go off on your own and be an entrepreneur, basically, you're on
Right.
your own. So was that journey to entrepreneurship scary as far as that angle? Was it
Right. It
scary?
is. It is scary because remember, you're going from a steady paycheck, and that I left a well compensated job.
Yep.
But I had a little bit of an advantage being the age I was, and my kids had already left home. I
Oh,
didn't have that pressure, right?
yeah.
Now, I'm not saying if you're younger, you shouldn't take a daring step. You should, if you can, but be realistic that when you start a business, money is not going to come pouring in, clients are not going to come pouring in. You got to establish yourself. So
Mhm.
make sure you have enough of a nest egg or whatever you want to call it
Yeah.
saved for you to then go try. Because you know what, if you're already gifted and you're good, your talent is going to be noticed.
Right.
But if you feel like, oh my god, I'm running out of money here, then the desperation shows, and you
Yeah.
don't want that. So for me, I was a little bit more blessed. I didn't feel the pressure because my children had left home, they were independent. So yes, a little scary, yes, but not as much as it would have been had I done it in my 40s with my kids going to school and college, right? So
Hmm.
so that was the transition plan. But I had spoken to some really good speakers before, and they all told me, make sure you have cash in the bank before you start on your journey. And so, in a way, nothing came as a surprise to me. Yeah.
Right. Right. So you went for it, but you were somewhat prepared,
Yes.
basically, and that made a difference. That's what
Yeah.
I'm picking up. Hmm.
Right. For me, but I also know other people have done it in the exact opposite way and still thrived.
Hmm.
So there are multiple paths.
Right. Yep. Now, with your coaching business, by the way, I love your marketing. I love your website. You have a killer website. I don't know who you paid or if you paid a small fortune, but you have very good marketing. So, how do you get your clients, and how do you do you primarily speak with corporate clients, or one of like who's your customer?
So let me tell you, we're talking to a PMI. So my first customers were PMI chapters. Okay.
Mm,
So I went with what was familiar. Then I reached out to the HR organization like PMI SHRM because my topic is about people,
mhm,
and they are very interested in topics about people and communication. And so is PMI. I mean,
mhm,
which
yes.
project manager doesn't want to better improve their connection skills and their communication skills?
Right.
Then I branched into companies. So basically, you have to speak to PMI chapters and all that. Get your videos, create your speaker reel, build your marketing. Then it's easier to sell yourself.
Mhm.
So you got to have a. So I started with what was familiar, and I went straight to PMI first.
It makes sense
Right.
because as a small chapter, we're always looking for speakers. We don't necessarily need the established speakers because first of all, we don't have the budget. So I think it is a good strategy if you want to go into coaching to target organizations like ours to kind of get going. Now, as far as uh, you know how we have professional development day, we have the global events. Have you spoken at those kind of PMI events, like the big
Uh,
ones?
no, I have not spoken at the. Sorry, I have spoken at the big PDD event, like I did the
Mhm.
Austin one last year, but I
Okay,
haven't spoken to the big
not yet.
giants yet.
Not
Yes,
yet.
not
Okay.
yet.
Okay. It's coming. I went last December because it's an annual thing that they do, and it was my first one, and I was re-energized. So many good speakers. I can definitely see you doing a session for PMI Global, if not obviously not this year because the the submission deadline passed, but in the future it can happen.
Yes.
Now, as far as your book, going back to your book, I read it um, as a first generation um, college student, immigrant, first anything, right? I wish I had something like this. And it's not even a huge book to where it's intimidating. Um, to me, this is one of those books where you need to have it on hand, right? You got to have it on hand. You read it once, you read it twice, three times, four times, however many times you need to. And then you definitely need like your notebook or something to kind of keep you in check. Was that your was that what you were going for? Like to try to like give us the Bible, if you will? You know,
You
like
know,
people like me who don't have I got into corporate life by myself. I didn't have anyone guiding me or anything like that. Was that who you were speaking with? Someone
right,
like me?
right. Like, remember I said, I read a lot of self help books and they were all fantastic. And honestly, they inspired me. They taught me so much.
Right.
And I bet you there's some inspiration there that I probably regurgitated in my own words and experience in this, right? But let me tell you, they are not broken up like this book is broken up. I realized as I was going through my career and all the lessons learned, not just my lessons learned, but lessons learned from other people,
Right.
um, I I started organizing it. What comes first? What comes next? So I decided that I'll make it a framework where people first you have to do inner work. You can't just thrash around and expect things magic to happen. If
Mhm.
you're not a self-aware person and you're trying to build a brand, you will not necessarily succeed. So I decided become that self-aware person first, get to know other things, and then I build a step-by-step process, like a how-to, a recipe book, like
Yeah.
how would you prepare an end dish, right? So I decided to put all that is important and foundational at the beginning, and
Mhm.
then I talked about how to slowly build up.
Yep.
So that was the plan. And you were talking about how this book is like a Bible. I'd say this book is a nightstand book, because if this book is sitting by your nightstand,
Yep.
and if you had a bad conversation at work and you're feeling troubled by something, flip to that chapter to read different situations, say, what could I have done differently?
Mhm.
Because I tell you, these are the things. One thing about, first of all, in the corporate world, you need other people to help promote you. Now, you
Yep.
talked about having a sponsor who would promote you. I'm saying you even need your peers to promote you.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Your peers, people under you, everybody, if you don't have goodwill, there is no whisper campaign happening in your company about you. You need people to tell somebody else. Florence was amazingly helpful. She is so good at what she does. This kind of stuff comes with people. That's why relating well with people, even if you suspect ill intentions,
Mhm.
tell yourself, no, I'm going to assume good intentions and move on. You do not want ongoing conflict because it won't help your career.
Mhm.
And there's a quote in my book. They say, I'm here to get to the other side of the swamp, not to fight the alligators. So be laser focused on where you want to go. And it came from that amazing book called Art of Possibility. But anyway, so always think at what your end goal is. Learn to get along with people, navigate whatever you have to navigate. And you can do it. It's not that complicated, but you
Right.
got to make it a daily practice, be intentional. So anyway, the whole book, I kind of said everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's a small book. I mean, given all how many pages this could have been, you put a lot of good information in here. And one thing like I was saying, the notebook, you got to have a notebook as you read it. Are you planning to, I don't know, do a workbook, or do you think, is that something, have you been asked for one? Or because when I was reading it, I thought about that,
No,
guided, something to kind of guide you to pull it out of you.
right. No, a workbook is coming,
Hmm.
but I can't tell you the end date. And I know this book needs a companion book, and that's the workbook. I tell you, I kind of had to stop because I had to do a full brain dump into this book, and I was like exhausted.
Hmm.
And I realized I could probably write on a notebook, but I know a workbook would be much more palatable to most people. So it's coming, Florence. But I'm thinking by fall I should have it, but who knows?
Okay.
Might come sooner.
Right, right. Yeah, it would be wonderful to have that. So now that you got your feet wet as far as being an author, do you feel like you will have more books on different topics? Like, where else do you think you're going to go into?
Yes, I'll take off this year for sure. Writing a book, but people tell me the first book is always the hardest, so I'm exhausted. But people tell me when you write your second book, you're not going to feel so exhausted. And I believe that because everything gets a little easier the second time around.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's a second book or a third book, but definitely nothing this year. But I may explore maybe a chapter or two from this book even
Mm-hmm.
deeper in my subsequent books. And I tell you one thing, like I said, I truly have this connection with corporate employees. I have been a part of their world.
Yes.
So that's why you even see the title in the subtitle, you'll see corporate
Yep.
world. I am laser focused on that because I know there are a lot of people, high potential people, who are looking for a way, and I have this connection with them, this
Mm-hmm.
kinship, and I will always, always, always work on helping them. So
Yeah.
showing them the way because I wish people were there to show me the way. I
Yes.
found the way, but the hard way.
Yeah. In this book coming out this week, actually, your book came out in May, being graduation month, and people graduating college, young and old. This is such a um, to me, I think it should be required reading. The things that you covered should be required um, reading or content that you should walk out of college knowing. Like you don't pass if you don't know half of what's in this book. I feel because it will save you a lot of headache,
Yes,
and
yes.
tears and frustration and everything else.
No,
So do you feel like you've accomplished everything that you wanted? I think I know the answer as far as going from being a software developer. You were a business corporate leader. Now you're into coaching. Now you're into being an author. Like, what's next for you? Like, where do you want to go next?
you know what? I have a growth, like you said, you know my answer already. I have a growth mindset.
Yeah.
I'm not done. We're all a work in progress. I have no idea where I'm going next, but I'll continue with my speaking coaching for sure. That's my passion. I used to dream about it when I joined. So around 2012, 13, I used to have this vision of me on big stages, right? So that's still very much in play.
Yeah.
But I joke with people, my family has a very long the women in my family live very long, and I keep telling people at age 90 I'll be studying something, I know.
Oh
So
yeah, that's right. When we spoke, you were in India visiting your mom, right?
yes, yes,
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You guys do have longevity.
yes.
Now, with respect to the book, are you doing anything on do you have a speaking tour, like maybe a virtual, or where can people follow you and connect with you? Um,
Yes, I am among all the social media platforms. I'm most active on LinkedIn, and my goal is always to be helpful. So when I post stuff, I think about the person who's going to read this and what message do they want to hear today. So
mhm.
if they connect with me on LinkedIn, they'll be happy they did because you're going to start seeing real good information that will resonate with you that you can take to work the very next day.
Yeah.
So that's that. So LinkedIn, you can follow me. And if you are ever interested in your company to have a speaker, check out my website, vidyaraman.com, and you'll see my topics and some background. There's a little section about me and my career and why am I so passionate about relationships, communication, and also personal growth, right? Professional growth. Because, living on hope alone doesn't cut it. You have to do more. Hope is not a strategy. So, my whole
Say that
thing
again.
is.
Hope is not a strategy. Yep.
So, you really have to. And I tell you one thing, people think it's daunting. It's not. If you do something that's important to you every day, it is not daunting. And throughout the book, you'll agree, I said, don't take on too much. Limit it to one or two because you'll definitely do better with that.
Mhm.
You got to highlight what you really have to work on. I've seen transformation. By the way, talk about Toastmasters. I've seen transformations of people who were scared when they walked in. 3 months later, they're standing there confidently speaking. What is that? That was
Mhm.
an investment in their growth, right?
Right.
So you can't just say, oh, so and so is not helping me. That's why I say take ownership. Stop waiting for somebody to rescue your career. You rescue your career.
Yep.
And this is my message, and I know it could be a parting message for most people,
Yep.
is you follow the rules in this book. You do everything right, and you are getting better, stronger. When you look back and you do this compare about where you were, you're going to see huge progress. Now, you hope this progress has caught the attention of somebody and you're going to get ahead in your career or whatever you want. Maybe sometimes you don't want to go up the corporate ladder. You just want to be valued, right, in a broader, reach. But say nothing materializes for you. What you've accomplished at the end is an amazingly transferable skill person who can land another job where you'll be appreciated.
Right.
So you are building a better, stronger professional, hoping to get ahead in your own company. But after all your attempts, if you don't, remember, you're stronger, more resilient, you're really professional. Anybody will hire you and you will do really well. So don't ever limit yourself into saying, I'm waiting, I'm waiting. You get better, and suddenly the world around you gets better.
That's a great message. Don't wait. It's good to hope, but don't rely on hope alone. Do the work. Be
Yes,
in control of your career and what you want. Go for it.
right.
So with that, I think we can kind of end our live stream here because I don't think what else can we say as far as advice is concerned. I think we've covered everything. Now, if anybody is out there, you want to pick up this book, you just go on Amazon and put Lucky You by Vidya Raman, and then you can buy this book. It's not a very intimidating book, but the stuff that's in it is life changing, career changing, even. I would encourage all of you who's watching us tonight to go get yourself a copy and follow Vidya on social media. Follow me and the PMI Central Illinois chapter because we're trying to bring people like Vidya around and other topics up to the forefront. So it's really wonderful to network with as many of you as possible. We have a lot of events coming up for June. We have Mei Ling, who is the current PMI Dallas chapter president. She will come talk to us about change management on June 6th. And then on June 22nd, we have a gentleman, Christopher Gross, who is a change management DE&I specialist, who will come talk to us about using design thinking from architecture and bringing that principle into project management to be better leaders, to manage our teams and projects better. So we have a wonderful lineup for June. We have a great lineup for July already. It's going to be around risk management. And then that risk management is a lunch and learn on July 11th. And then we have a baseball game, a networking event on July 28th. So this is our first time getting together as a chapter since COVID lockdown. So I'm excited to see as many faces as possible. And we should have a wonderful stretch of events coming up. So visit our chapter website, which is www.pmi-cic.org. Obviously, check us out on LinkedIn. That way you don't miss any flyers or any promotions that we're doing. And just stay in touch. And I will let you guys know when we have our next PMI-CIC on the air. I'm trying to do this quarterly because it's a lot to do. And I'm very picky about who I bring on and what we talk about. So I take my time with these events. The next one will be in Q3 and obviously Q4. And so with that, I don't have anything else to say as far as CIC is concerned. But Vidya, thank you so much for being so welcoming, for being so open to like a random person just DMing you to talk about, a podcast she heard you on and wanting to bring you around. And I can't thank you enough. You've been a very you've made my experience with CIC very pleasant, as far as what I do, trying to get speakers and put together events. I'm very glad that our paths crossed, basically. So I will just wish everybody good night. If there are no questions, I don't think I saw any questions out there. So if you do have questions, just reach out to Vidya.
Yeah.
Again, grab her book, which will have many, many answers anyway. And reach out to me, and I can help you get connected as needed. Well, Vidya, is there a last minute word, or are we all good?
We're all good, Florence. You're simply awesome. I just think on all the responsibilities you've taken on, I'm so impressed. Thank you. Thank you so much for this. And all your members, you'll please connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to connect with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vidya. I had a great time chatting with you, and we'll be in touch.
Yes, we
All
will.
right.
We
Have a
will.
good night.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.